Hi, I'm Paul from Crypto Balance, and today I wanted to talk about crypto investors' recent video called Polymath is a complete joke but a strong buy. Now, I've been subscribed to Crypto Investor for a while. He's a YouTuber that I really like. He's clearly a very intelligent guy, and he's clearly done a lot of research and spent quite a lot of time looking at this. I'm also an investor in Polymath. It's a project that I'm very excited about. So this didn't make for very easy watching for me and probably other people that also own Polymath. So as investors and just in general as human beings, we're all very susceptible to confirmation bias. As soon as we buy into a project, it's very easy to want to push any information that contradicts our beliefs, push them aside and just label it as FUD. Now, I want to make sure that I wasn't doing that and wanted to take crypto investors' criticisms of this project very seriously. But if you feel I'm not being fair and balanced and I am conforming to my biases, please let me know in the comments exactly where I'm going wrong. So firstly, Crypto Investor calls Trevor Kverko a figurehead, a nominal leader without real power. And he goes on to show some clips of Trevor speaking at some conferences and also in a YouTube interview that he's done. And his criticisms are that he gives very similar answers, almost identical answers to the same questions or the same points, and that he is sticking very closely to his investors deck.
You might be wondering what led me to this conclusion. He seems like a nice enough guy, and he's plenty charismatic. First, the guy is effectively a walking pitch deck.
So I don't find any kind of problem with this at all. Yes, it is true that the answers he gives are very similar at these conferences and in these interviews, and in the side-by-side comparison that Crypto Investor shows, that's certainly obvious. However, I just simply don't have a problem with that. To me, it would make sense that somebody who is at multiple conferences and kind of on tour promoting something would give very similar answers to the same questions or describe things the same way. I just don't have any suspicions, or I don't really understand why this is viewed so nefariously in this video. So after showing these clips, Crypto Investor then goes on to preemptively assume a rebuttal to his argument.
Now, you could argue the guy is just prepared, or he has certain stories that he likes to tell.
And really that probably does sum up my counter to his accusation.
That's all there is to it, and I should stop looking so much into it. But if you actually listen to his talks in succession like I have, you'll quickly realize he's practically a cassette tape, even in more casual conversations.
So I think all this Crypto Investor has done there is just re-emphasize his original point. So he said that if you watch his videos in succession like he has, you'll realize he's a cassette tape. Well, calling him a cassette tape doesn't really provide me with any evidence that he's a figurehead. And he all he's really doing is reasserting the argument he's already made, that he does repeat the same answers in different videos. I've watched a lot of Polymath videos in succession as well. I did that as soon as I discovered that. I watched everything I could find on YouTube pretty much, and I didn't have a problem at all with what I saw. I would say that if anything, I got a little bored of watching some of the presentations Trevor was making, because he was covering the same things over and over again, and he was repeating the same points. Now, I didn't view that any differently as if I'd gone to see a comedian on a few different nights and they repeated the same material. He's on tour promoting his company, speaking from a set of slides. Of course, that presentation is going to be very similar on each occasion. I don't think there's anything wrong with that or anything nefarious about it whatsoever.
And pushing him on Polymath, he gets right into those pre-constructed answers. In other words, he hardly brings anything original to the table, and I heavily doubt that he's the brains behind the operation.
So my personal opinion is that he seemed to be a very good speaker and was very charismatic, and that he would be a very good networker, and he would be good at pulling people, the right people, towards this project. And in his own words in this video here, I think this is quite insightful of what he thinks he brings to Polymath. I'll just play this for you.
And this is kind of contrary to a lot of conventional wisdom. But in my view, the only two skills you need to learn to be successful are actually fundraising and hiring. And if you can master those two skills, you really don't need to know anything else.
So in Trevor's own words then, he's good at raising funds and hiring people. That's what he sees himself as best at. And I certainly don't see that as bringing nothing to the table. They are incredibly important things. I think as an entrepreneur, if you can put people in positions who are better than you at each skill set within your business, you'll do really well.
See, Polymath doesn't want to have to deal with the legality concerns of becoming a broker-dealer or a securities exchange itself. Instead, they want to outsource that risk to either number one, other exchanges that partner with the platform like T0. Of course, these other exchanges also face the same problem of not wanting to be considered securities exchanges, so they then go on record and say that Polymath is the exchange.
This is the next point that I wanted to address. He's saying there's a game of hot potato, as he puts it, where Polymath don't want to be considered a securities exchange, and neither do T0. I'm really confused by this point. That's not to say that I'm saying he's wrong. I'm just saying I feel like I'm missing something here. Because as far as I can tell, T0 is going to be a securities exchange, and they are claiming that front and center on their website. So this is the T0 overview paper. After several years of development, T0 has positioned itself to capture the fast-growing digital securities market. To date, T0 is the only platform that has ever traded a digital security, and we were working diligently to build a token trading system to trade securities. And then again, its platform highlights to develop a token trading system capable of trading crypto securities. So I just don't understand where this has come from. I'm not aware of this back and forth debate between Polymath and T0. I have Googled it. I can't find anything. I've asked in the subreddit. No one got back to me. There's no link in Crypto Investors' video to where they publicly stated that they weren't going to be a securities exchange. So genuinely, if you have that link, please pass it on to me. If you can help explain this point further, please do. But as it stands, I don't really understand, or I've not seen this. I just feels like we're talking about two completely different things at the moment.
It is a protocol that resides on top of Ethereum that allows issuers to restrict access to tokenized securities. I would also like to note that in an earlier version of the investor deck, which Trevor graciously pointed out was the wrong deck while presenting on it, there was a slide that noted the ultimate goal for Polymath was to move to its own proof-of-stake blockchain, and that the ERC20 Poly tokens initially issued would interact with this new chain, at least supposedly.
So this is a criticism of Polymath that I've seen before come up in the subreddit, and I think there certainly could be more clarity on this. There's been several people that are confused by it. I have heard people talking about Polymath being blockchain agnostic, and my understanding of this is that Polymath would create security tokens that would be for various different platforms. So at first they might create tokens that would be ERC20 tokens on the Ethereum network, but in the future they might create tokens that would be on other networks such as EOS or Cardano. And the reason for this being that that would be more flexible, and they're not committing to any one particular blockchain. So in my opinion, this is a valid point from Crypto Investor. I think he's right to ask more questions about this. Other people have been asking questions, and I think it's something that we'd all like to get more clarity on from the Polymath team.
First, I disagree with you because they did more than just outsource the risk. They also manipulated investors by representing themselves as a liquidity provider in their presentations and blogs, which people actually read.
So I think that's a quite a big statement to make, is that they manipulated investors. So taking a look at the blog post that he's referring to, and again this kind of comes back to the issue of them appearing to be, or him believing that they presented themselves as an exchange when in fact they're not, and there being contradictory information out there. So this is the blog post that he was looking at, and I agree that this line here that he's highlighted certainly is confusing in the context of everything else that I've read and understand. So I do understand crypto investors' concerns here that this is at least, well, I believe this is at least poorly worded and it is confusing. I think it's probably going too far to say manipulated investors, because I think that's quite a serious accusation. I don't think that's, at least not what they're intending to do, and I don't believe, or certainly when I decided to buy Polymath, I don't believe I was manipulated or that I misunderstood. I didn't think that Polymath was an exchange. I don't know about you, if you bought Polymath, did you feel manipulated into buying it from this blog post or any other information that was put out there by Polymath? Did you feel you didn't understand it before you brought in, and since then you do feel that you were misled in any way? I'd certainly be interested to know what your opinion is. So I believe this sentence to be referring to the network of lawyers, KYC providers, and so on, sort of illustrated in this diagram from the investors deck. But I do agree that the wording here certainly is confusing.
One huge assumption here is the notion that there will be legal delegates who actually know how to make a token compliant with securities laws in the first place.
So this is difficult for me to comment on. I wouldn't really know. I find it hard to imagine that wouldn't be possible. Looking 10 years ahead, I find it hard to imagine that this won't be the norm by then, whether it's Polymath or someone else that helps to facilitate that change.
And furthermore, if these legal delegates even exist, how many of them are not going to be already occupied at another blockchain-related company, given the ridiculous demand for such lawyers?
So if lawyers are occupied in other areas and they're in high demand, it's just simply a case of a free market of labour. They're incentivised by being paid in poly, and the more in demand they are, the higher that price will need to be. But I don't see any reason why they wouldn't come to work on these templates.
However, what I really want to note is that Trevor and Polymath consistently reiterate the fact that KYC will be integrated into the tokens, as if this in of itself creates security tokens. Now, they obviously don't believe that, given the discussion in their white paper about creating legal templates for offering security tokens, but it's what they focus on in their blogs and conferences. Do you know why they focus on KYC over anything else? It's because it's what we all understand and are familiar with.
So here I think Crypto Investor is insinuating that Polymath are again being misleading by talking about KYC being baked into these tokens. Now personally I was not under the impression that the only thing that a security token needed to have in order to be a security token was having the KYC baked into the token. But as Crypto Investor pointed out, it is an important requirement to exchanges. So personally, I didn't have a problem with them talking about that, and I have also read their full white paper, and I do understand that there is more to it than that.
Is it any surprise then that they also decided to name their token standards ST20 after ERC20? Again, it's all about trying to create a feeling of familiarity which provides investors comfort. In other words, they want to invest because they feel that they understand what they're investing in.
So here again, he's implying that there's something very nefarious about the naming of the ST20 token. And then he goes on to describe very well why I think they called it the ST20 token, because it has an association with the ERC20 token, and people are comfortable with that. So I agree that that's why they've done it. I just don't see anything wrong with that. For me, that's just good branding. There's nothing wrong with naming something in a way that it is associated with something else. We're not tricking people into thinking it is something else, but making something familiar and having them feel comfortable with it and having it easy to remember, that's just good branding and good marketing. There's nothing misleading there at all, and the way it's presented in this video in a kind of conspiratorial way, like he's pulling back the curtain for us, I just don't see that at all. I don't see anything wrong with the naming of this token as an ST20 token. I think it's a strange point to make.
For example, Trevor constantly boasts about the size of Polymath's Telegram, which hit the 50,000 cap prior to Telegram eventually boosting it up. And from my understanding, and I will preface this by saying I am by no means a Telegram expert, but I'm fairly certain to get all of the information related to the airdrop, you had to sign up to their Telegram. In other words, people just signed up to get free Poly tokens, so the growth really wasn't that organic, and yet Polymath talks about it all the time, and Trevor says, you know, in crypto, your community is your project, and yada yada yada. He has that whole marketing speech that he does. And realistically speaking here, you know, they basically bought followers on their Telegram.
So this is one of the points in the video that I think is the weakest, and I think he makes a very poor case for really there being anything wrong with what they've done. So yeah, I've been in marketing and digital marketing for a while, and I just see this as marketing. I've started to refer to this as airdrop marketing. Lots of other ICOs are doing this as well. Haven, I think, even had 100,000 or close to 100,000 last time I looked for their airdrop. The Friends ICO had 80,000. Since Polymath have done this, other people are doing the same. It's just a new form of marketing. I say it's a new form of marketing. It isn't at all, really. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm opening a cupcake shop in my local town, and on the first day that it's going to open, I hand out flyers that say, "Come along on the first day that it's open, and I'll give you a free cupcake." And the first day it opens, my shop is full of people trying my cupcakes. A percentage of them are going to really like them, and they're going to go over to the counter and they're going to buy maybe a box of cupcakes, and some of them are going to become regular customers. And this is really no different. This is exactly what's happened with an airdrop with Polymath. They've given something out for free in order to raise interest in the community. There has been a lot of interest. Some people in that Telegram group would have come, got the 250 Polymath, maybe stashed it somewhere in case it's worth anything one day, maybe gone and sold it as soon as they can. They have no interest in Polymath. A percentage of the people in that Telegram group will have gone on to take more interest and perhaps go and buy tokens on an exchange. I was one of those people. A percentage of those people, again, might go and join a subreddit, and contribute to a community there. So to say that they have essentially brought in Telegram followers is false. They've incentivized people to join a Telegram group. This is done all the time in digital marketing. You give something away for free in order to get an email address. It's extremely common. It's not manipulative or nefarious in any way. It's just a very good example of successful marketing.
Then you also have the fact that the distribution of the tokens is questionable, to say the least. You have 1% that was distributed through the airdrop, with the remaining 99%, yes, you heard that right, 99%, being held by pre-sale purchasers, founders, advisors, or in reserve, which I'm still not totally sure what that's all about.
So here, Crypto Investor criticizes the distribution of the tokens. Now this is something that I also have been and still am concerned about, and has been a concern of a few people who have come to the subreddit and asked about this. So this has been quite well talked about in the subreddit, and I think the best thing to do is probably going to take a look at some of the arguments for or against in that subreddit on these topics. So I'll leave a link for that down below. But I do believe this is a very valid point to at least raise and discuss, and I think this is one of the much stronger criticisms and arguments in this video from Crypto Investor.
And Polymath has zero control over that. They make it sound like it's going to be easy to create legal templates for security tokens, but I guarantee you that this will not be the case. And yeah, that's right. I used the G word. There's also some less significant warning signs.
So here, I don't think Polymath are necessarily saying it's going to be easy. I think easier and cheaper. He might have a valid point that it will never be easy. Regulations are always changing, and Polymath have very little control over that. And I certainly would agree that there's likely to be many obstacles in the way before this will become easy. So I think he's got some good points here. However, in general, he's also talked about it not being possible to create templates, whereas I don't know much about this area, but I don't see why there wouldn't be overlapping work for each of these projects. Yes, each security token might need to be customized in some way, but I don't see why you couldn't start with base templates, and that would essentially take out a big chunk of the work, making it easier and cheaper and giving the Polymath network value.
There's also some less significant warning signs, like the fact that Tai Lopez, of all people, is going to be at their Polycon event in the Bahamas. And funny enough, they actually removed his picture from the investor deck that's on their website now.
So I agree 100% with crypto investors' point here. I think that Tai Lopez is someone that detracts credibility from a project and doesn't add to it. I think that he is perceived negatively in the crypto community by and large, certainly in the Polymath subreddit. That's been mentioned and has been criticized. I also would rather have not seen them make that association, and I would also describe it as a marketing blunder. So I think he's got that 100% spot on.
And then there's also the fact that the project is supposedly under a year old and really only seemed to ramp up conveniently after the global crackdown on ICOs last year.
I'm not too sure what he's insinuating here, that it would conveniently ramp up at this point. It would make a lot of sense that entrepreneurs who try to predict what's going to happen in the future and try and look at what the future landscape might look like, that they would design products and services that would be in demand in the future. So them conveniently coming up with a product at this time, he makes it sound again quite nefarious. To me, that just sounds like a good entrepreneur has spotted an opportunity.
Wondering why in the world I'd ever buy Polymath, and the answer is simple. It is brilliantly marketed and right on time.
So here he's saying that he would buy it because it's brilliantly marketed and right on time. So this is the part of the video where he now makes a case to why it's a good buy, even though only idiots are buying it, really. That you know there's going to be bigger idiots in the future, so you can get in before those idiots. Seems to be the case that he's making. So throughout this video, I think he's been extremely critical of anything to do with marketing or branding. So I think this is a little bit in contradiction to the tone of the rest of the video.
That's it. That's all there is to it. It will fool the plankton, it will fool the VCs, it will fool the angel investors, it will even fool many developers and lawyers because it all sounds incredible on paper.
So here he's just mentioned that it will fool developers and lawyers, but earlier on in the video he was saying that he didn't think that lawyers would come and participate in creating these templates, but here he's saying that he's confident that they're so good at fooling people and they're so good at marketing that it will fool these people to coming and working on it. But that again does seem to contradict an earlier point he made in the video, that he didn't think, or he was in doubt whether lawyers would come and take part in this network of services on the Polymath network.
But fortunately, the crypto space really hasn't grown smart enough to pick apart projects like this because...
So he's saying that because the community in general isn't smart enough to see what he sees, that this project has no merit as far as he's concerned, that more people will buy into this in the future. I kind of object to the tone that he takes throughout this video. He uses the words fool and stupid and convincing plankton and this kind of stuff. Personally, I don't like this tone. I find it a little condescending. Just because other people do see an opportunity in this, I don't think it makes them an idiot or a fool.
As this project is going to persuade many people, And what I like about it most is that it's going to even convince rich and powerful people.
So it's going to fool big money, it's going to fool influential people, it's going to fool developers, it's going to fool lawyers, it's going to fool the plankton, that's us. So it's going to fool everybody. Aren't these all the elements that are needed to come together to make this work? It seems to me that if it's going to do such a good job of getting all these people on board, does that not, in his eyes, give it any chance of success?
You know, this is the kind of project that stirs up community leaders and media and everybody else because it gets them excited as they all see the writing on the wall for ICOs, and Polymath is right on cue. You don't think that's a coincidence, do you?
Again, no, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think entrepreneurs spot opportunities and try and take advantage of them by offering a product or service that they believe will be in demand in the future. It's again presented as that somehow a nefarious thing to do. He says the writing's on the wall for ICOs and they're right on cue. Well, that's what good businesses do. They spot an upcoming trend, an upcoming demand, and they take advantage of that. That doesn't in any way, there's nothing wrong with doing that, and again, I'm unsure of why it's presented in such a negative way. In my eyes, that's actually a very positive thing, that this is a company that do seem to have come along at the right time with the right product. What more can businesses do?
The management team at Polymath also seems to know all the right people in all the right places, and they are working hard on using that network resource to belt out as many heavyweights as possible. Now, me personally, I really don't think this improves the quality of the project. In fact,
so I think by this point in the video, the fact that he's just said that they know all the right people, which again I think particularly for this type of project is going to be hugely important, and that they're pulling in this sort of all-star cast of advisors. He views this as a negative, but at least at this point in the video and on this point he says, in my opinion. Now, I think most of this video is just that. It is his opinion, and not too many of his points are backed up by facts. They're just a disliking of this project and the people involved, particularly the CEO, and it's mainly his opinion. And his opinion on this, which of course he's completely entitled to, is that it's a kind of too many cooks spoil the broth type effect. But in my opinion, having a great team and an all-star cast of advisors is a positive, and I think most people would agree it's one of the things we sort of look for when investing in projects is great team with great advisors that look like they have people in high up places and so on. And I think if Crypto Investor loved this project and loved everything else about this project, I find it hard to imagine that he would arrive at this point and criticize that they have lots of very good advisors.
Given the quality of the partnerships really doesn't matter all that much. Now,
So again, he thinks that Polymath is going to create a lot of partnerships. Partnerships create a lot of buzz in the community, and buzz in the community makes the price go up. So, this, of course, being part of his case to why, despite it being a terrible project, it might be a good project to buy into at this point. So again, just to go back to what I was saying to you before, so it's going to fool everyone into getting involved, lawyers, people in high up places, important people, big money, etc. It's going to create lots of partnerships with lots of different companies. So they're all the reasons that maybe the price will go up, but they're not also the reasons why a project might actually be successful. One thing I'd like to say is that, of course, Crypto Investor has put a lot of work into his video. He's clearly thought about it a lot. I think critical voices, concerned opinions should be and are very welcome for any project that you're interested in. It is very difficult to take in this kind of information when you are invested in something. Hopefully the arguments that I've made have been logical, where I've argued against some of the points he's made. If I haven't been, and I have misunderstood things, and I am wrong, and crypto investor is right about more of what he's saying, because I obviously think that he's right on some of the points that he's made, then I want to know, because I don't want to be emotionally attached to a project. If I thought every point he made I agreed with, I would sell my Polymath and go and look for a project that I believed in more. But I don't agree with most of the points that he's made. I think it's all presented in a very nefarious way, a very kind of conspiratorial feel to the video. I think that's completely unfair. I think he's misinterpreting good business at times for something, again, that is maybe manipulative. Now, have Polymath got everything right? Definitely not. There's things that I'm concerned about. There's points that I've agreed with in this video. I've not found a project yet where I love every aspect of it and it gives me 100% confidence in it. And usually the longer you're involved and the more you look at these projects, the more you do find that you don't like and the more that you find you do, because that's always going to be the way it goes. A project like this that's very early days still, of course there's huge question marks over whether this will go on to be as successful as some of us hope. I still feel like this is a good opportunity. I've not seen anything in this video that really puts me off. Some of the points that I agreed with I was already aware of and I did consider to be negative. So that's it from me on this topic. I'd like to thank Crypto Investor for taking obviously a considerable amount of time to produce the video that he made and showing an interest in something that I'm invested in. That can only ever be a good thing. So I really genuinely like to thank him for that. I'd love to hear from him in the comments of this video. I'd love to hear from all of you, because the last thing I want to be is wrong. There's most, it's very easy to be too emotionally invested and to be wrong about something that you're invested in, and having someone criticize a project like this can only be healthy, and having a conversation about the pros and cons of all these projects that we're interested in is a very good thing. So please let me know in the comments anything that you think I've got right or wrong. Of course, we always have to say this, none of this is financial advice, although I don't think this has been that kind of video anyway. But yeah, please do all your own research, and don't take my word for it or Crypto Investor's word for it. Look into this project for yourself and decide whether it's something you want to be invested in or not. So this is a new YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate a like and subscription, and to hit the bell button so you get notifications of future videos of mine. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.